Accidents, injuries, and illness can strike at any time. Now, in the ordinary course of events, if one gets in such a situation and requires help, an ambulance, a hospital, emergency services are never very far away. However, if you're hiking or camping, you may be several hours away from help, should you need it. So a good first aid kit is an important essential. In today's video, we're going to have a look at how to assemble a good quality first aid kit suitable for camping or hiking. And we're going to look at the one that I put together for my own camping and hiking. Stay tuned. First aid kits come in a wide array of sizes and shapes, with some containing a great deal of equipment and others very little. You can get a first aid kit so compact it'll fit in your shirt pocket, or one so large and bulky that it would be the full size of a full-size backpack. Now obviously some first aid kits are bigger than others are smaller, but you have to match up what your likely needs are with carry weight, size, things like this. So if you're backpacking, you can't afford to have your entire backpack full of first aid equipment. You need everything else that you have to carry. Equally, something that'll fit in your shirt pocket, although it'll deal with minor scrapes and scratches, there's an array of incidents or illnesses or accidents which could occur which it simply won't be suitable for. It just won't have what you need. So you need something with a great deal of variety and versatility, and yet also be very compact. The other issue, of course, is expense, because if you're putting a first aid kit together, how much does it cost to do it, and is it going to be cost effective? The kit that I'm going to show you in a moment is the one that I normally bring with me when I go camping and backpacking. It's quite compact, doesn't take up a lot of space. I think it costs somewhere between 20 and 30. It's not expensive, and that was with me adding lots of things to it. Now, it was actually two cheap first aid kits that I bought from very sort of bargain shops, and then I added things to them. So although it may, at first, you may have seen the case in an inexpensive shop where it was cheap. And if you look at the list of original contents, they're minimal. But what I've done is I've taken two, one a shirt pocket size one, which I've used for medications, and of the larger kit, which is what you're going to see initially, which has all the basic first aid supplies for the average accident. Between it, it'll cover a wide array of different situations, so that if you're camping, instead of an accident or an illness or some small injury becoming debilitating or a real problematical thing, it becomes a minor nuisance which is easily put right in most cases. Certainly, it'll keep me going for a day or so, which means that my camping trip need not be spoiled because of a small accident or a minor illness. Let's have a look. So here we have a compact first aid kit, quite small in size, and when you buy one of these, they're not particularly packed, they're quite loose fitting because they don't have that much in them. But I've used this only as a starting point because, first of all, it gave me the pouch, which was helpful, and it had some basic supplies in it. And if we open it up, we will see I've got all sorts in here. So here, for example, is surgical tape, but squished flat so it doesn't take up too much space. This is a pocket-sized first aid kit that was bought separately. I emptied its original contents and added it to here, which we'll have a look at that in a moment, but we'll come back to this one. But we'll just put that over here for right now. Now what we have in here are, some of these are original supplies, some of the things I've added. But just so you can get an idea of the range of things that I keep in order to cover most situations. So these, you've seen me in the previous video show, these have alcohol, these have iodine in them. They are simple applicators which are sterile until used. I know with these, some people have complained that, oh well, they're made out of plastic and they can make there's a bit of waste, but actually there's less plastic there than in a single yogurt pot. I'm only likely to use a few of those if necessary, and the plastic is recyclable, so it's not a big deal. Contained in here I also have a number of tweezers, and these are designed for removing ticks and things of this nature. Ticks, splinters, and that sort of thing are easily dealt with that. Here we've got a medium number 8 sterile dressing. I've got some Vaseline. This is normal Vaseline petroleum jelly, which is designed for dealing with chapped lips. It's sealed, but basically Vaseline is a useful thing for any kind of minor burns, for example, like an excessive sunburn. That can be very soothing. Also used as lip balm, but a little container like that is a good way of carrying a decent supply. I've got some scissors in here as well. These unfold, and they're quite useful. You can buy these online very cheaply, which is what I did. What else do we have? There's a dressing. Here we have, actually this first aid kit had more or less this contents in it. And also, well, this is actually contents from both of these first aid kits combined. If we just pull this out, we can see we've got lots of bandages, loads of bandages, as well as some additional surgical tape, as well as a number of safety pins, which, as any first aider knows, is incredibly useful. So we have, as I say, mostly just bandages, plasters, band-aids, that kind of thing, as well as some basic first aid instructions, as well as a bit more surgical tape and safety pins. I've got here a triangular bandage, always a useful thing. In fact, when I first studied first aid many years ago, it was considered one of the most useful things. Blister pads, plasters. These are very useful if you're hiking and you get a blister. We now have wound cleansing material, so you have, these came with it. I know we have the alcohol and iodine, but we also have sterile wipes. These are actually rather good for clearing skin or hands before dealing with things. You have sterile stuff. A small, tiny container of Sudocrem. A strip thermometer, which you just put on your forehead, and it uses liquid crystals to get a color change so you can get a temperature reading. Roller bandage. A bigger roller bandage. This is Factor 50 sun cream. Now this is a kid's one, and I chose this one because it is as compact as it is, and this is not quite a roll, it's more of a wipe-on type, but it's sort of like a stick deodorant, but it's Factor 50 sun cream because there may be issues with intense sunlight. There is a first aid manual that comes with it, and that's it for this kit to show you the basic contents. I'll show you this in a moment. But basically what we have here is enough to deal with most cuts, scrapes, scratches, that kind of thing. We can, either using the Sudocrem or the wipes or the alcohol or the iodine preps, we can sterilize wounds, we can deal with blisters, we can deal with, I mean, you have the triangular bandage, so if you even break your arm, you could put yourself into a sling. So there are various things here to deal with most minor little emergencies in terms of injury. Obviously, something this small, it's not like you're walking around with a hospital in your pocket, but it is a decent array of bits and pieces for injury. Next, we'll put all these away and have a look at what's in this small kit to show you what we have for illness. So looking at the small medicine kit, we have here ibuprofen, aspirin, paracetamol. Not necessarily recommend to take all of them, but for example, you may need aspirin if you're having a heart attack is very useful. Paracetamol won't do you much good. On the other hand, you don't always want aspirin, so you might prefer to take ibuprofen. It depends on what's wrong and whether or not it's just for yourself or someone else who may have a particular allergy. So we have a range of analgesics. Here we have things for stomach upset. So we have antacid tablets, and here we have wind settlers, which are designed to help relieve trapped gases in the body. So these are good for digestive illness. Here we also have anti-diarrhea tablets, which if you have diarrhea on a camping trip, you really want to put a stop to that as quickly as possible. So any kind of gastric issue, we're kind of covered here. These are flu tablets, should you develop flu-like symptoms, including hay fever, something like this also can be involved, as well as, especially for hay fever, this is an antihistamine, Claritin, which is a non-prescription antihistamine. That's also very useful should you have something like a wasp sting, which brings us onto the antihistamine cream, which again, for wasp stings or other stinging things, very useful because it can take that right down. We have salt in these little convenient little packets, several of these. To be fair, if you're suffering from heat exhaustion and about to have heat stroke, one of those can resolve the issue almost immediately. We've got some plastic gloves here. There's also some super glue, which is used for wound closure, as well as Dentip, which is used for temporary repair of fillings that may have fallen out, or if you lose a cap on a tooth, it can be used to fix that. So we have dental emergencies and severe bleeding injuries covered. This is actually conventional super glue. But you can get, there is some made especially for medical use if you prefer. Some people recommend that. I've had success with this myself, but I'm not making a specific recommendation. But I would say that some type of adhesive type of closure for severe wounds can be very useful. And I've had good success with that in the past when I have had severe wounds which I needed to close up and keep sterile, because this cyanoacetate, it also sterilizes. Again, antihistamine is very useful. And so if you have minor illness or digestive upset or something of this nature, this will cover a wide range of situations. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it is moderately comprehensive. So that's what I decided to put into my first aid kit. Now, you may consider some of these things to be useful and wish to do the same with yours, or you may wish to go in a slightly different direction. If in doubt, I strongly recommend discussing it either with your GP or perhaps even taking a first aid course and taking advice from your first aid instructor. Exactly what you choose to put in your first aid kit is a personal decision, and this is simply what I do. I'm not explicitly recommending any of these, although I have found them to be useful for myself in the past. Generally speaking, first aid comes down to dealing with an emergency. And one of the biggest problems with emergencies is you don't necessarily know which emergency you're going to have or when. If I've shown you anything with this particular first aid kit, it's not explicitly what to put into yours. That's up to you. It depends a little bit on where you're going, how long you're going for, how much weight you can carry, how much space is available. But what I would hope that you would take away from this is the idea that if you are putting together a first aid kit, you may start off with a cheap, ordinary one that has some space to put more bits and pieces into. Or maybe even a couple, as I have, so that I have one of the little pouches used for medicines to keep them readily available and all together, and then the rest of it for things for cuts, scrapes, scratches, breaks, that sort of thing. But the main thing is to have an array of different things, not necessarily enough to keep you going for weeks or to do surgery or anything fancy like that. We're not Rambo. But rather just enough materials to be able to deal with an emergency and keep it contained and controlled for at least a few hours, if not a day or so. Because if you're hiking, if you're camping, it may take that long for emergency services to be able to respond to you. And so you need to be able to look after yourself for at least a short time. Also, a lot of the emergencies that are likely to occur. And bear in mind, most times, most people who go camping, most people who go hiking, do not have emergencies. Most of the time, everything is fine, and first aid kits are never used. But they do happen sometimes. And if you have a kit, and you know how to use it, you could take what could have been an absolute disaster and turn it into little more than a minor inconvenience. And that's part of the reason for having it, because you don't want a disaster. A minor inconvenience is bad enough, generally speaking. But again, the takeaway that I hope you got from my kit is that it's designed to handle a wide range of things, because if something is going to happen, whether it's an accident, an injury, or an illness, I don't really know what it's going to be in advance. So I have a range of different things to cover different possibilities, and I'll use what I need. Most of what's in there I'll hopefully never need to use. But because I don't know which bits I'll need, I've tried to put an array of things in there in a space that is relatively compact, that I can hold in my hands quite easily, and which at the same time allows me to cover both injury and illness, at least to a limited extent, and at least to cover me for a few hours, if not a day or so. And again, relatively inexpensively, because the two kits, one of them cost, I think it was £1 or £2. The other one was less than £5. And then I added a few other first aid bits and pieces that I had picked up from the local supermarket, actually, in their medicine section. So it really didn't cost very much. I don't think it came to much more than $20 altogether. And it's a reasonably comprehensive kit. So, let's say, if you don't already have a first aid kit and you're thinking about putting one together, I hope this has given you some idea of how easy it is to put one together and how comprehensive it should be for a range of different problems. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you like this, and if so, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. The more subscribers we have, the more content we can do. And please share. If you're on social media, share this video. You might find that some of your friends might find this interesting as well. Anyway, I hope to see you on the next one. Have a good one.